Good evening, everyone. Last panel of the day. So hopefully you guys are not you're sufficiently actually caffeinated to go through this and sit through this. My name is Anuj Tandon. I've been an entrepreneur, operator, and an investor in the industry in India for the last 14 years. And we've been doing this panel practically since IGDC started. Maybe 1 or 2 years we missed it, but this panel is special because we almost get 100% hit rate on our predictions. I'm just kidding. It never happens. But it's like more of a crystal ball gazing that, few of the industry experts do. And very few people make it back twice in the panel or thrice in the panel. So that just shows the hit rate. And some of them are here twice. So that's a very good thing. What I'll do is, guys, I will make quick introductions about you guys from whatever I know. If you want to add, please add. But just in the interest of time, I think we'll just skip the introductions by the persons, right? So Saumya is the co-founder of Winzo, one of the largest real money gaming apps and also one all-in-one app. She will talk about her business as well and what value it adds in one of the questions. Jackson here is the founding GP of Konvoy Ventures. It's one of the biggest global gaming funds that invests in game and game tools and game tech. Kartik is he's pretty well known here. So he's partner at Aream and one of the best global investment banking firms. I mean, there's no one better than them. And we have Sudhir, who's the COO at Nazara, the only public listed gaming company in India. So yeah, he has that's a massive chip on his shoulder. Cool. So we will probably just dive into it, right? Jackson, I've been like, whenever I go to global events and whenever I come back to India, whenever I go to global events, it is just last few years has been very depressing. I mean, I'm the optimist. Usually an optimist, but whenever I go to global events and gaming events especially, I've been very depressed, like coming out of it. It's like, oh my God, what's happening? Why am I smelling this fear of things happening, right? So what is really happening in the investment space, right? It's globally, what are people seeing red flags about and overall the general atmosphere?
How about now? There we go. Yeah, I mean, it is difficult, right? Fundraising right now is very difficult across the globe. I think when you look at in terms of quantum of capital that's going into companies on the VC side, specifically for gaming, this is roughly 2 billion a year. That's what we're expected to hit this year. That's what we hit roughly a little bit over last year. But if you go back to 2022, 2021, those numbers were closer to 7 billion or 10 billion, right? So it's a lot less capital that's flowing into the market right now for early stage companies, and especially for growth stage companies. It's even harder there. So I think as entrepreneurs on the early stage side, I would say you just got to keep fighting, right? What is interesting though, I'll point out, is that for early stage companies, the number of deals is still pretty constant. So you'll still get a deal done, hopefully. It'll take probably longer, and it'll be harder to do. You'll probably raise less money. So you're gonna need to figure out how to do more with less. But that said, I'd say that in trying times like these, we find that entrepreneurs who battle test themselves, and they come out of the other side better for it.
Understood. I mean, I was just going to follow up with Aakash if he was present, but unfortunately he's not. I think in India, we are not seeing that much of suppressed valuations in gaming. I think one of the panelists before this panel was Karan, and he's raised a massive round at a very high valuation, I believe, and good for him. I'm not commenting on anything. It's good for him. So it's so in that sense, India is a sort of a different. It's living in a different sort of maybe not the right word is bubble, but different area. And that's what comes back to Kartik. Like globally, we are seeing transactions, M&A happening. public listed companies in gaming having certain valuation multiples, and it's very different in India. Like we have just one, but it's different. So how do you see the landscape globally, and then contrasting it with India on this?
Uh, so I think maybe just some context of valuations and industry, right? So India is perhaps in an earlier stage of progress and maturity of the industry. But if you look at the broader gaming industry, I think 21, 22, this was a double-digit growth industry, and then suddenly, brakes were slammed because when you are living through it, when you're planning, when you're investing, making decisions about games, you are taking decisions for what will play out over the next 2, 3 years. And at that point, the growth outlook was very different to exactly how it transpired. So I think the rate of change or the sudden change is what has caused a lot of this disruption. And then I think many of these companies sort of were being valued on certain assumptions around growth, which were recalibrated. But if you look at what has happened since, of course, some of the larger, more diversified, take an EA or an Exxon and so on, have largely started trading where they used to. And then there's a big divergence. The ones that have not been able to grow have been penalized. So you see this massive divergence in valuation. And I think India perhaps, because there is plenty of growth ahead, or the expectation of growth, I think that naturally factors into from a valuation perspective.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up. Do you see maybe some valuations being suppressed leading to more deals happening, or do you think that is not a factor in more M&As happening?
Yeah, I think, look, just to give people a sense of change and momentum, 21, if you look at the last decade and you look at all 100 million plus deals, and why 100 million plus deals? Because that sort of starts to make a difference to early investors and so on. Almost 50% of the deals happen between 21 and 22. So if you are an investor, if you're an entrepreneur, and you see this pace of activity, I think it changes what you expect. And then if you look at the rate right now, I think we ourselves as a firm, we've done 14 deals in gaming this year, a couple of big ones that got announced this week. But, the pace is not too dissimilar to what it was pre-COVID, right? That's sort of steady pace. But I think, again, it's the rate of change. So, and I think when this happens, of course, it changes the outlook of investors, because suddenly it's like, oh, what, exits are hard, and so on. But the original investments actually went in an environment where capital was hard to find.
Yeah.
Gaming was a difficult sector for investors to invest. But then all the phenomenal successes that came out were seeded at a different time. So now you're back to that same normal. But, it's hard to extrapolate and say, this is how it's going to pan out. But even if things were, you don't have another 21, 22, but things carried on, there will be a pace of exit. Is it as good as it was before? No. But this is the environment we were living in 2018, 2019, 2017.
Perfect. Sudhir, coming to you. The Indian public market, right? It's the Swiggy IPO happened yesterday, open to a good. I think the retail investors in India have taken a massive interest in investing in mutual funds. Domestic institutional investors are pouring capital in the markets, and I think that has also contributed to Nazara achieving an amazing outcome for their public company. So, is it a great arbitrage? I'm not asking you of a strategy because that's already there, but great arbitrage at this time to play on the globally suppressed valuations, and for you, is there an alpha in building companies for public markets in India for startups in next 2, 3 years, 5 years?
Thanks for the question. I mean, firstly, just about going public, right? Just that point. I think Nazara was the first one to go public in India. I think that was before I joined, so I can't take credit for that. But timing-wise, that was 2021. I think if you'd asked people at that time, that 3 years later would be sitting here and saying there's only one public company still in gaming, I don't think anybody would have believed you. Because the expectation was that by now there would be many more companies which have gone public. I think what has happened in the meantime is because of regulatory uncertainty. And many of the other large gaming companies in India are RMG. And in RMG, there has been like kind of sequence of regulatory uncertainties, which has kind of started getting simplified, but we're still grappling with the last of those, hopefully, which is this retrospective taxation. I think once that gets cleared, I do fully expect maybe another 5, 6 companies are kind of ready, waiting to go public, and a few of them definitely will. I think the Indian market is definitely hungry enough for it. I think it's that question of when the government will sort of have regulations in shape which will allow that. That said, for us as Nazara, definitely we have picked up additional funds from the market in the last year and a half, maybe twice.
Yeah.
We have found a lot of appetite from investors who are keen to put in money into gaming. I'm not sure whether valuation-wise there's an arbitrage, but certainly opportunity-wise, we have found good opportunities outside of India especially, where in many cases there are game developers who may not have access to whether public markets or in some cases private markets as well.
Yeah.
And they're keen to find solutions for their financing requirements or for exits to their shareholders. And we as Nazara have been able to take advantage of that and buy those companies, right? Or look at those companies and then decide if we want to buy or not. So the timing is good for us on that front right now. Will it stay this way? We'll see.
Perfect. And with the right word mentioned, regulatory turbulence, I come to Saumya. I'm sorry, I had to say that. 2024 seems to be a year basically as a recovery year. I think from last year when we spoke, it was a little turbulent. I think it's been a recovery year for a lot of RMG companies. Is it safe to say it's done now and we're looking towards growth, or how do you see the year gone by for you guys?
So, good question. Thank you. I think a part of the question was also answered by Sudhir, who rightly said that a lot of gaming companies are actually waiting to IPO. In fact, congratulations to Nazara and what we are experiencing here at IGDC today. With a lot of global investor interest is also thanks to Nazara, where they have been able to create exit and showcase to the world that gaming exits are possible.
Yeah.
However, the only having one company in public markets is also not the best representation of what in India can be. Today we are sitting at $2.5 billion that were invested in gaming. 90% of that investment actually lies in real money gaming companies,
Yep.
which basically, these are some of the most prolific funds such as Tiger Global and Sequoia. So, which basically means to get more capital, we'll have to give that liquidity
Yep.
in form of public markets. While companies may have responded to change in GST in various ways, the most important response is to be able to create for mature companies that policy stability and regulatory stability so that they can create that liquidity so that that liquidity can then be redeployed into the market.
Yep.
And create a stronger investor interest in this ecosystem, which is right now at just the right point where it can become a market leader. India is currently sitting at 20% of users, gaming users, from all of the world, which is 600 million users sitting in India and consuming games.
Yep.
However, we are making only 1% of revenue of the globe. If you look at, what segment of 300 billion gaming industry are we actually contributing to, it's 3.3 billion. If you look at what is RMG contributing to it, then it's around 85 to 90%. What is important to see here is that, and this is our personal journeys also as founders of Winzo. We started as an ad and subscription-based platform, and we felt that India requires innovation in monetization, which is one fundamental problem, if not unlocked, will not create enterprise value. And of course, RMG is India's innovation to monetize casual games, to monetize gaming as a category, to monetize viewership as a category, powered by microtransaction thanks to UPI. But we do feel that GST is a very small part of that battle that every entrepreneur has to deal with certainties and uncertainties and responding to that quickly. But I think we're just scratching the surface because eventually our goals is to create liquidity for the capital that has come into the country in form of FDI and create role models for global investors to look at India, Indian companies and believe that there is real enterprise value that can be created and that can be generated. So I think we are just halfway through by bouncing back to as a business model and having respectable, EBITDAs post the changes in GST. But I think the story is still left.
Perfect. So means turbulence is over, smooth landing soon. That's good to hear. So moving on, I think what we have done is we've understood what has happened, right? And now we will go to the next part of the panel is, okay, what is going to happen? And that's when the panel will, give their opinion on that. So what are the trends and predictions, right? And I'll start again with Jackson. I think and let's make it relevant for the audience. A lot of here people are indie developers, are small developers that are building, games. And with the IDFA issues and the organic growth sort of slowing down, do you think, UEFN, Roblox are the next big platforms that developers should be building towards? What's your take on that? I mean, at an overall level.
Yeah, I mean, my view on UGC platforms, notably, Roblox obviously is the big, behemoth in the room. There's a ton of growth opportunity here, right? I think interesting with Roblox, early October there was that report that, suggested that they were over-reporting user numbers, and, end of October their Q3 numbers came out. And they'd grown 30%, year over year. It was, quite phenomenal. And I think the stock actually jumped 17%. And I think that, we have questions around whether that user base is aging up. I think there's a question there in terms of, does it matter, right? They seem to be performing well. There is a user base there that you can go after. And so I'd say, yeah, absolutely. Go for Roblox. Build on top of that platform. Then, of course, there's UFN on the other side, right? And they're moving very quickly, very aggressively. I think there's some 500 million that's been paid out to creators already on that platform. And so there's huge opportunities in both of those.
Understood.
So, sorry, if I may just add a small point on
I
that.
was coming to you only, but yeah, please add.
That may be different. But just on UEFN and Roblox, right? If I may make one prediction on that, not on the numbers, but I just think, I think one change we will definitely see in the next, if not a year, then maybe a couple of years, year and a half, is I think we'll see a lot more developer tools coming out from the Roblox guys and from Unreal, where, right now you can publish a game there, but can you really analyze the data of the users? Can you really integrate it well enough with some other channels that you want to push stuff to? I think we'll begin to see a lot more tools that they send out specifically for third-party developers. And I think that's going to also start making a big difference in terms of how many games end up getting published there. So
Yeah, I think we'll stay with you from this one. So I think there is a theme, I think in the previous panel also, people talk about building India for the world. But if you really see numbers, one of the few places globally where there is still organic growth, where is happening, is where there's the largest population in the world is India, right? Mobile gamers are still growing at a very, very healthy rate. Do you think, advice from your side for next year, should you be building for emerging markets like India, Middle East, or should you be building for, say, global, more mature ARPU markets, but harder to monetize through high UA prices?
see, I think for us, at least as a public company, we do get measured by eventually numbers.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, short-term numbers as well as long-term. So we can't lose sight of markets which are already monetizing and focus purely on markets which may monetize in the future. So at least for us, the answer tends to be we will very often focus on developers who will be targeting the US or other markets.
Yeah.
And in addition, they will be targeting India. But purely India is very tough. We do have a couple of studios which do that. But we've seen it's much tougher to scale them up compared to the international ones. But again, if I were to make a prediction, I think the kind of geographic locus of the industry, I think, will switch more eastwards. So I think you'll see a lot more stuff coming out of, as well as being built for places like the Middle East, Southeast Asia, China, India. And maybe at future IGDCs, you'll actually see a lot more like brown people than white people, in a way, right? Just no offense. But I'm just saying, I think right now you're seeing a lot of US as the primary focus, but you will see a lot more diversity in that, but maybe still international.
Right. And Saumya, coming to you, I mean, RMG companies, in a way, from a product perspective, solved distribution, monetization, and in a way also IDFA. You guys were not allowed on those stores for a long time, and you solved that IDFA problem before any global company did, from a product perspective, right? User attribution and all of that. Do you think it's viable for indie developers to say, okay, multi-gaming platform, I should be building games for that? How's your outlook for 2025 on that?
Absolutely. So when actually we were born with the IDFA problem, right? So today we are 200 million users in India and approximately 5 to 6 million users in Brazil. Last year we launched in Brazil. And we do feel that gaming, we started with the toughest problem, which is distribution, because we were not neither on App Store and Play Store. Which basically is an asset which is available to all the game developers, because imagine something like a Netflix of gaming. We don't invest a lot of time in making games ourselves. We feel that creating a platform play, distribution, creating a monetization strategy is our biggest strength. And making games is a very strong creative job. So we partner with game developers to publish the game on our platform, either on a platform or we have another business called Zo Games, through which we publish games on various stores across the two countries that we feel comfortable in. And hence we are able to create multiple case studies. Today we have around 100 game developers. 80% of them are in India, and then there are some global investors for whom we could create absolutely viable alternate monetization model without them investing a single dollar in distribution, because the moment they go live on a platform, they're live with 200 million users. And that is what we build, we get for game developers. So absolutely, why not also publish on Winzo while you are publishing it on absolutely any other platform? I would definitely request game developers to consider that as a platform also available to them. I do see a lot of global game developers, including the larger ones, actually reaching out to us as a platform, especially for their strategy in India, to find a way how they can integrate their product on the real money monetization model that we have, or the microtransaction part monetization model that we have, because now they do believe in the India story. They do believe that the large number of gamers in the market they don't want to miss on. However, they do feel that it would be easier for them to have somebody give them immediate access to a large paying audience. So I'm a strong believer, of course. That's why we built Winzo.
So I think to summarize for the audience is, I think the panel, what they're suggesting is Roblox, UEFN, great new opportunities for young developers to explore. Organic growth is happening, but go for higher ARPU probably is a better strategy going forward. And also for emerging markets, where go with platforms that have already solved the problem of monetization is probably a better way to sort of balance your books, so to say. Next part I would start with you, Kartik, is I think the AI disruption in gaming is sort of underway. We're seeing I would say supply chain disruption in certain ways happening because of AI. Do you see it will push next few years for better margins? I mean, we are being sensitive to people and people losing a lot of layoffs happening because of maybe AI or efficiency improving. Do you see that will lead to better margins of large public companies going next year, or do you see it'll be still a suppressed valuation market next year?
So I think right now, if you look at some of the leading studios, they're of course utilizing AI. So the cost benefits, of course, make a lot of sense. In reality, though, historically, the way it's worked with the industry is that, if you have savings on margins, typically means that you produce more content. Particularly, with live ops heavy games. So I suspect there will be, improvements in margins or better cost. But I think what it will push eventually the industry to is just better games, more content. And it's always worked this way. You save on something, you will spend it on marketing. So of course there is a certain margin threshold, but I don't think it just means that suddenly you have an incremental 50% margins as a baseline, I suspect, right? And then I think there's of course been talk of games itself that incorporates AI improving experiences. It will likely happen. The gaming has always been really good at utilizing technology, driving more engagement. Will that create new forms of games? How that evolves? It's likely to clearly create new opportunities, as it has with every change in technology.
Yeah, yeah. Jackson, coming to you, I mean, as a gaming tech investor, I think this is probably, you're seeing a lot of startups with new generative AI, machine learning models coming to you and pitching to you. How do you see that? Is it something that will disrupt game development in a cyclic way, or do you see more as an additional feature that will augment game development or make it faster and more efficient?
Yeah, and I think I agree with a lot that's been said here on this. The way we view it is, I mean, look, there's a lot of money going into AI in general. When you look at funding that's gone into gaming, the portion of that is AI related was 22% in Q3, right? So there's a lot of focus here. And I think that's going to continue, right? That's going to continue this quarter. That's going to continue, I think, for the next few quarters. It's a hot area. I do think that will start to drop off, though, particularly because what is going to be the differentiator for a lot of this stuff? It's becoming commoditized from our perspective, and I don't think it's going to draw a lot of differentiation, especially for existing, call it AAA studios, or everything, from single A up through them, right? Existing studios that are leveraging this technology, they're going to use it to build more content, right? And then it's just going to become more competitive in the landscape. So, is it going to be a game changer from, no pun intended there? I think it's going to improve game development, absolutely, but I don't think it's going to become a differentiator for companies.
Understood.
I think the key thing is, what are games that can be created which utilize the technology in a new way that may have not been possible before? Because if it's the same, let's say before manually generating a puzzle would take, 6 months, just making it up now. But now you could do it in 6 minutes, so you have a new one every day. Like that's a new form of gameplay, which may not have been available before. So I think it will impact in that sense, but just having that is not a differentiation because it has to be ultimately a better game.
Right, I think that's also a really good point around. There is the AI and ML and all tools that are put into creation of a game, right? That's the development piece. But then once a game or product is live, is there AI being used in some interesting way to make that experience better? And is that unique? I think that's what should be focused on, and that's where the most value is going to be.
Yeah. Sudhir, just as a lighthouse of sort of seeing a lot of gaming activity in India as a public company, do you see any AI first innovation happening in India? Do you see any AI-based innovation happening with Indian startups that you guys interact with?
No, I think there's a lot of AI-based innovation happening. I think Jackson hit it precisely right? There's a bunch of innovations which are more at the back end, which is the whole game development process, making it more efficient, making it maybe being able to put out more content with the same team, etc. And we're definitely seeing a lot of that. and that I think will become table stakes. I think everybody will be doing it. The tools are public. It's not proprietary tools necessarily that will make that difference. But the other part, which is, can you use it to create entirely new concepts? I'll give a small example, not exactly a game, but like an app which is gamified, which is, you have tutors, languages, but having a completely AI-based tutor which will talk to the kid in their own language and teach them another language at the same time, but do it in a very gamified way. Now, this was something which really couldn't maybe have been done in that way 3 years back. It's being done now. I'm sure in 2 years there'll be a much better way of doing that same thing which somebody else will come up with. But there's another one which is you're playing your favorite racing game, and at runtime, you as the player are able to change the environment you're seeing in the game. Now, things like that will happen, but it's basically, I think, game designers will come up with very interesting concepts which AI can then execute, and we will hopefully back some of them or so on.
Guys, I need to now, since we have like a minute, I'll quickly go into a maybe more rapid fire sort of a thing and just quickly close out the panel for more questions from audience. Maybe just some hot takes. Start with you, Saumya. 2025, do you see any RMG IPOs happening, yes or no?
I think the retrospective will take some time, and IPOs will happen only after that.
Okay.
So hard to say 2025 is the timeline that we'll be able to meet.
So, okay, Sudhir, same question to you. Do you see any gaming IPOs happening in 2025 in India?
I would think yes.
Yes?
I mean, I'm kind of betting that regulation will get clearer, but I would think yes.
Right.
Be
And
careful, may not be called back.
Kartik, you see, I mean, IPOs is a liquidity event, but do you see M&As being stepped up by Indian companies for global assets or for Indian assets in 2025?
Can you say it again, Anuj?
So do you see any M&As happening for Indian assets by Indian companies or global assets by Indian companies in 2025? I mean, I'm not asking how many deals you want to do in India, but
I think the
but-
answer is yes, and we're trying to make both happen.
yeah. So, but do you see that trend going up?
Yeah, I think, look, this has played out, right? It has happened. There have been acquisitions. And I think as the market gets more attractive, there will be an interest here.
Right. And Jackson, for you, how do you see 2025 globally? Do you see, well, the markets are going to recover in 2025? Is 2025 going to be better for VC investment deals happening globally? And what do you think?
Yeah, I think we'll see more growth stage. I think that's been really quite depressed over the past couple of years. I think early stage we'll continue to see scrutiny. I think we're entering a new normal, right? And that I think is going to be quite steady, right? And I think there's going to be scrutiny around, are you profitable, right? Is there profitability? Are you focusing on your metrics that are really important? I think there was a comment I think in the last session on from Nexus around, hey, the encouragement to founders was focus on the metrics that are important for your business. And I think that a lot of founders that came up in 2021, 2022 were coached to focus on growth, right? And to no fault of their own necessarily, they carried that into 2023 and 2024 to their detriment, right? Where it became incredibly difficult to raise without the core fundamentals of their business being in a solid point. And so I think that scrutiny that we're experiencing now will continue even as the market gets better.
Perfect. Last one. Sorry, Sudhir, I'm just going to take one. Web3, with the Bitcoin prices going through the roof, so do you think Web3 gaming is back in 2025? Just a yes or a no.
Actually, I'm going to skip that question, but I'm going to make one other prediction, kind of related, which I actually think is probably the biggest change I see coming in the next year, at least from my point of view. I actually think the whole game distribution model, and Web3 is kind of related to that, but I think the whole game distribution model, I think, is changing, especially for mobile games.
Yeah.
I think we kind of gotten used to Play Store and App Store being the only ways people find games, only way they pay within the games. We're already seeing Epic launching on iOS and getting open to third party, I think by the end of this year.
Yeah.
I think next year we'll see that plus possibly more contenders on Google as well as iOS. And I think the minute that opens, I actually think the floodgates will open, and that will lead to, I think, a very fundamental change in the way that games are distributed, but that also will lead to changes in business model and therefore what kind of games are built. So I think that may be a bigger one.
Which sort of brings to the fact that community and Web3 are very good at actually building communities, right? So the Web3 guys are good at that. Saumya, your take? Web3
Yes.
2025 will be yes. Cool. So guys, that's
I've got Anuj. I've got one.
yes.
Poll,
Okay.
poll to the audience. Is Anuj the best moderator? And is he going to moderate this panel again next year?
Absolutely.
And if he does, do you think he's going to call any of us back next time?
Cool. Thank you so much, guys. For if do we have no time for questions? Okay. I'm so sorry. We can ask questions offline, but thank you so much for listening to us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.